Welcome to this presentation on Keeping the Lights On, where we discuss cyber defense in the context of electrical utilities. We live in a society where the majority of us could not envision a world without the electricity that drives industry, powers the internet, and lights up our homes. In an effort to keep the lights on, operators of electrical utilities have become increasingly reliant on cyber capabilities to serve the needs of their stakeholders. In December 2015, the SCADA systems controlling 30 substations at a Ukrainian power distribution company were targeted in a cyber attack. Based on the below factors, this advanced persistent threat was orchestrated by a sophisticated nation state, extended reconnaissance phase, custom code targeting operational technology components such as PLCs, a multifaceted attack targeting multiple geographic locations and site configurations, denial of service attacks against customer care capabilities to create chaos, attacks against IT and OT infrastructure to delay the ability to recover, such as disrupting UPSs. Whilst this is believed to be the first publicly acknowledged cyber attack on a power grid, resulting in power outages, this cyber defense challenge can be seen as a major threat to global stability. The power grid in Victoria, Australia has evolved from a single, state-owned operator with horizontal integration into an interdependent network of disaggregated organisations handling generation, transmission and distribution. From a governance perspective, there are multiple layers of regulations and corporate governance between the utilities providing the power, generation capabilities and the consumer. A factor brought up in the response to my original forum post was the challenge with private organisations wishing to protect proprietary information and their reputation. I would argue that mandatory reporting of cyber attacks and breaches to a government agency, such as the Australian Cybersecurity Centre, is an appropriate measure and aligns with their remit to collaborate with the private and public sector to share information on threats and increase resilience. There is no long-term competitive advantage for an electrical utility in not sharing this data with an independent organisation who can anonymise and share the data. In return, utilities that participate in such a program should receive advice of how their peers are being attacked so that they can implement appropriate defensive measures. The power grid is a complex system of systems, and I would conclude that a well-defended grid with long-term stability makes good business sense for all stakeholders. Agencies such as the Australian Cybersecurity Centre also have the ability to share data with foreign counterparts that may be beneficial in hardening electrical grids globally and allowing us to defend against a common enemy. In my original posting, I discussed the expansion of the Internet of Things as a factor that provides power operators with opportunities to exploit commercial and operational efficiencies, with the ability to enable electrical grid operators to adjust the production, flow, and cost of electricity according to real-time market demands. In discussing the industrial IoT, analysts from Technavio have forecast a market of $132 billion by 2020. And in a survey conducted by Dimensional Research, 51% of respondents feel they are unprepared to protect against threats to the industrial IoT. A challenge with many off-the-shelf devices is that most IoT devices and sensors lack any form of security or security by design and will require costly mitigation activities in the future. From a system engineering perspective, the need for appropriate cybersecurity protections should be clearly understood as the business and stakeholder needs are defined in the acquisition phase, and these requirements should be managed throughout the system lifecycle. With Intel forecasting 200 billion connected devices by 2020, manual intervention is not going to be sufficient, and new technologies such as artificial intelligence solutions that can distinguish between normal traffic and suspicious activity will be essential in defending against these growing threats. Cyber attacks are fueled by the proliferation of automated tools, and to withstand the increasing wave of threats, cyber defenders will need to adopt some of the same technologies. Cisco Systems uses machine learning to block 200 billion malicious emails per day. This is an example of a task that would be impossible to undertake without constant advances in machine learning and automation. In regards to the transforming landscape that utility operators are facing, An interesting point brought up in the forum responses was related to renewable energy sources. The grid of the future is evolving, with residential and commercial electrical consumers installing technologies such as solar and wind for their own use, with excess power being sold back into the grid. In addition, smart meters and other data-driven technologies can be used to drive consumer behaviours that are economically efficient and environmentally sustainable. To support the creation of these mutually beneficial outcomes, the infrastructure at commercial premises and homes needs to be integrated into the wider power grid, creating a much broader attack surface. With the scale and complexity of the electrical grid, the development of machine learning and artificial intelligence solutions may be what is required to manage cybersecurity across the grid. In addressing the looming challenges, organisations are utilising artificial intelligence and machine learning to improve the resilience of the grid from a general system engineering perspective. Integrating cybersecurity into this resilience exercise will address one of the major vulnerabilities of the electrical grid as it evolves into a sophisticated self-organising network. As a complex system of systems owned and operated by various stakeholders, the weakest link in this dynamic physical and logical architecture can be the vulnerability that attackers exploit. The Ukrainian attack highlights the need to develop active cyber defences, capable and well-exercised incident response plans, and resilient operations plans to survive a sophisticated attack and restore the system, with these lessons being transferable to any power grid operator. New technologies such as big data and artificial intelligence will become critical in defending the electrical grid. It is up to all organisational components of critical infrastructure providers to take these lessons on board and ensure that the lights remain on